So we're gonna start. My name is Lauren. Welcome everybody to ETHDenver, Chainlink Labs, NFT Interoperability. Super pumped to be here tonight. Thanks for making it out in the snow. We appreciate every single one of you who contribute to our community. Super pumped about the panel tonight. We got Valeri, who's a software engineer from Aave. We got, give him hands up. We got the Michael Jordan from Polygon. And we got Snax, Dread Pizza Roberts from the PizzaDAO. I take most of my outfit inspiration from Snax. So yeah, it's great to be here tonight. Thank you, and we'll start the panel. So, what tech is necessary? What tech is necessary and used for NFT as collateral? Happy for you guys to share the mic, but do you want to start off, Stephen?
Yeah, sure. So I guess we could start with kind of the basics of if you were to do NFT as collateral, you obviously need a user with an NFT. You need someone who's willing to provide money or tokens in a loan for that NFT. And then you need some type of smart contract that's going to define how that loan would work. So in the most basic scene, you would deposit your NFT into this contract. And then that's kind of where there's room for creating something really interesting. And you have to agree on the amount, the interest rate, whether or not there will be liquidations, and maybe those are some of the things we can talk about as we move forward here.
And yeah, I mean, ideally what you would want is that kind of method where, because yeah, you've got the smart contracts at the moment where you can use it as an escrow account. So you'd put the NFT in there, and then if you do not meet your loan obligation, the NFT then goes to the person who provided the loan, and they get this NFT as their collateral. However, in an ideal situation, you wouldn't actually want to transfer that ownership to that smart contract at the start of the loan, because by doing that, you're losing the ownership of that NFT. It's no longer in your address, which means you're losing the utility. And of course, sometimes these NFTs can provide you with airdrops, access to exclusive discords. So what we might even see, and like I say, this is the ideal situation, not what we have at the moment, but we could have NFTs that have the functions built in where you could almost have like a delayed sale. So what would happen in a situation like this is someone will say, okay, your Bored Ape Yacht Club is worth, say, 100 ETH or whatever it is. I will offer to pay 50 ETH for it, and if you don't repay that 50 ETH in, say, a month's time, it comes back to me. And then the person gets that 50 ETH, they can do whatever they want with it, and then they have an option to cancel that delayed sale if they repay that 50 ETH plus whatever interest payment you have. And essentially what you're having here is now a peer-to-peer lending system without needing a third-party escrow smart contract account, which some of those actually currently exist now, but they take their little percentage fee for providing that service. Of course, that's the ideal situation because we're not there yet.
Yeah, so it seems like we kind of have the pawn shop model, the NFT-fi type of thing where, yeah, you have someone who's making the loan who is willing to buy the NFT for that price. And then there's more of the liquidity pool or fractionalization model that NFTX is doing. Because you need, these are illiquid, non-fungible assets, and in order to make them collateral in a certain way, we have to make them more fungible.
All right, thank you guys. So why is it so important for borrowers to secure loans with NFTs that they own?
NFTs are big value. I mean, DeFi is building money Legos. NFTs are building culture Legos, and it's easier to throw money at culture than numbers or policies, right? In many cases, so unlocking that value in our systems is going to enable people to much more freely build within the cultural confines of Web3, which, as we've seen already, can be incredibly powerful.
I think also when purchasing an NFT, there's always that paranoia, that risk that the floor might go all the way down to zero. And that keeps some of the NFT holders awake at night. Whereas if you can use your NFT as collateral, what you effectively are doing is entering into a put option for your NFT. And what that means is that you can purchase your NFT, lend it out at that 50% collateral. If your NFT then tanks, this is the person, the person who's borrowing the money, then what you do is you just abandon the loan because you've actually hedged that position away. And what happens in this sense is if we can remove that downside risk, suddenly these NFTs are a little bit more attractive, or the paranoid people, like let's say myself, are more likely to enter into it. And that's going to put upward pressure on the price of these NFTs, and we're actually going to benefit the entire ecosystem.
Yeah, and to add on to those things, I think it also gives NFT holders liquidity. So right now, I think it's almost a meme where you have a Bored Ape holder who lives in an empty apartment with a mattress on the bed, and they eat ramen every night. So they could, take out a loan. It could be, even a 5% of the NFT's value, and they could eat something a little nicer than ramen. So I think there's definitely a need for it, and for those people, they don't want to sell it. They have a connection to these NFTs, but at the same time, it enables you to pull out some of the value, at least temporarily.
Definitely. Maybe people can buy plants and dogs and other things to keep them busy besides their Bored Apes, but I love the Bored Apes. So what kind of NFTs do each of you guys think are going to be the most integral part of the DeFi ecosystem?
Well, so clearly the ones with long-standing value and that are relatively liquid are going to lead the way, your CryptoPunks, your Bored Apes, but utility NFTs will likely follow closely along, gaming NFTs, and then as we start to NFT things like houses, cars, watches, possessions, all of that will play a part.
Well, you look here in the physical world, what do we use most of the time for collateral? It tends to be property. Now that we're getting into the metaverse and we have virtual property, those virtual properties can be represented as NFTs, and they could be key collateral for these upcoming loans. So I would say, your virtual real estate is going to be key in collateral for this whole model.
Yeah, I agree. Echo those things. I think we'll see the progression start from some of the more popular NFTs, so Punks and Bored Ape Yacht Club, moving maybe to Decentraland where you have real estate, maybe then to the Metaverse where you start to have fashion and maybe a Prada bag that's an NFT. And then you can see already with real world assets. I think Aave has our real world asset market where you can borrow against. I think it's fractionalized properties. Obviously, some hoops to jump through to do that still, but it's starting and it's evolving.
Definitely. And just to back off that, how do collateralized NFTs bring value to users in the DeFi ecosystem and space as a whole? If anybody has anything to add. How does collateralized NFTs bring value to NFTs?
Liquidity is value. Everyone goes where the liquidity is. If we want more people in NFTs, then we want them to be more liquid. We want to give people more opportunities to get their money out and continue to do more with it. Because every time we mint a piece of art, an NFT, right, we're creating value. And it's a great way to mint currency effectively.
And another great thing about collateralization is it's a form of risk management. And I know I'm talking to a crowd or a sample of the population that is a little bit more risk-seeking than the average person. But if we can start implementing risk management and we can make the purchasing of NFTs a little bit less risky, then what we're going to see is more and more people who have maybe been on the fence being like, crypto's cool, NFTs are cool, but it's just too risky. Collateralization and other forms of risk management are going to open the door and allow more people to come in. And of course, more people is just going to, again, be better for the ecosystem.
I think you guys nailed that one.
Thanks. Yeah, so let's move the conversation over the metaverse. So in each of your opinion, what is the metaverse to you? Yeah. And then we'll play off NFTs in the metaverse from there.
So I guess you could say the metaverse is your digital life and the interactions that you have in that digital world and the representation of yourself in that digital world. And ownership is an odd part of that has been historically challenging to represent in that world. And I think that's where kind of the blockchain fits into metaverse, is around defining ownership and property rights and kind of that aspect of the world.
So I like to distinguish between a metaverse, which has got the lowercase m, and the metaverse with the capital M. So a metaverse, your Decentraland, sandbox, these virtual online environments that don't have, a defined purpose or a set objective or a conflict that needs to be resolved by the player. They can kind of define what they want to do in it. And then the metaverse, and I guess this may be going a little bit on the philosophical side, is that it's a counter to the concept of the universe. So we're kind of growing up in this whole postmodern society, which is placing a lot of emphasis on the physical world. So the universe is what scientists have defined as everything that is matter. So you have to have matter or a physical existence in order to be in the universe. Bitcoin came along, and a lot of people were against it because they're like, you can't touch it, you can't touch it. And this is where the metaverse becomes quite a powerful framework, because the metaverse, being meta, transcending just matter, includes all these other types of worlds. The main one being the virtual world, but also incorporating, worlds from the past, like imagination, psychology, spirituality, things that, like I say, we maybe haven't put that much emphasis on recently, but in the past we, used to take spirituality, psychology very, very seriously. And I incorporate all of those type of worlds into the metaverse. And that's the one with the capital M, and as a distinguishing between a metaverse, which is, like I say, your Decentraland sandbox, and many more yet to come.
Thank you, MJ, for taking it to the philosophical level. I love the direction, and I agree that the metaverse can function as the compendium of all human experience to now, right? And then within the metaverse, we can establish our own digital identities. We had a quick chat before we came up, or before we started this. We said, what are we here to do? Pump our bags, right? And so I just wanted to say that people talk a lot about, when we're talking about a metaverse, right? And I think Crypto Voxels does not get enough respect.
Shout out to Crypto. Apologies for my voice being raspy. It's all right. What day is it? Wednesday. I'm going to make it all the way to Sunday, 100%. So why is interoperability so important with NFTs in the metaverse?
So again, I think it comes down to this idea of ownership, and that is what will uniquely enable the blockchain to make an impact here. And I think also we're seeing some interesting use cases with things like royalties and being able to profit off of the content that you're generating. So I think that too will play a role as people are creating assets or purchasing assets or content other than assets like songs or music or videos. So being able to own those and then also own things like the rights to the royalties to those items. So yeah, I think it'll be definitely play a role in defining how the metaverse works for sure.
And I guess it also adds control to that ownership. It makes that ownership a lot more meaningful to you. So at the moment, if we look at items that don't have this, let's say Fortnite, you've got some fancy skins that you can dress your character up in, and yes, you own them, but you don't really own them. You can't kind of like sell them on to somebody else or use them in other places. And having this feature where you can take one item from one metaverse and use it in another metaverse, like I say, gives more meaning to the form of control. Well, it means, more to your ownership, because you can control that item. And I think that's what makes it then very, very valuable to own those NFTs.
Yeah. For us to jump into the deep end of digital identity and build worlds in the metaverse, there needs to be interoperability so that you're not afraid of losing all the work you put in. Just like you were saying, losing your Fortnite character could be devastating, right? Vitalik getting his overpowered WoW character nerfed, right? Devastating. Thank you, Blizzard. So interoperability is crucial to enable people to breathe value and life into these systems, because if you don't have any confidence that the work you are doing to build identity is going to last, then why would you build anything?
100%. I want to have my own Pikachu versus your guys' Pikachus. So yeah, just putting that out there. And then just to be a little more specific, in each one of your projects, how does this same NFT ownership idea affect like what you're working on right now specifically?
Yeah, so at Aave, obviously, we are a liquidity protocol, so being able to borrow against ERC20s is kind of our main platform's function. So being able to transfer that to being able to borrow assets against your NFTs is something that is super interesting to us. We know that there's a lot of users out there that are demanding that, and we're definitely scheming a few ways to hopefully bring that out.
So yeah, with Polygon, we've got quite a lot of the big metaverses getting built on us. And I guess where we can kind of assist with this is with coordination. We can chat to them and make sure that the NFT in this environment can also be used over there, whether it comes to standards or however else we do it. Because decentralization doesn't necessarily have to mean disorder. So we can kind of be in there to make sure that, yeah, the NFT in one metaverse can work in another one.
So at PizzaDAO, we are imbuing our NFTs with the value that that pizza should be free and pizzeria software should be open source. And so we are locking people's value into our NFT to back that idea. So as we can collateralize our NFT and enable those people to have liquidity, I think it will enable more people to commit to our mission.
Very nice. I think you guys summed up all the questions, really. I was going to go off and say, how are you contributing to an open metaverse? But I think, guys, if you have anything to add, I'd love for you to add something.
I got
Snax has something.
many not a metaverse, right? Many metaverses have reached out to us to have a pizza presence there. We have a pizzeria in CryptoVoxels, rarepizzas.shop. You can see it on your mobiles. And I think Atlantis wants one, Frogland wants one. So everybody wants us to be a pizzeria in their metaverse, and we're happy to oblige. If you have a metaverse, let's put some pizza in there.
Thank you. Free pizza. All right, so we're going to do a Q&A now. If anybody has any questions, let's try to keep it to one question, one answer. I'm happy to start in the front. I don't know, probably bring the microphone, if somebody could help me out right now. Could you help me out with Andy? Or
Was there a question? I got this.
Hey there, I'm Marcos, marketing from IoTex, partnering with you guys. Question about royalties. If one platform will honor a contract property that dictates that royalties will be paid to the creator, it might be sold on another platform that does not recognize that property, and thus the requirement of royalties be paid wouldn't take effect, it wouldn't be honored. How is that solved, ultimately?
For those who didn't hear, that's a question about interoperability of royalties and other functionality from NFTs and platforms.
Yeah, so if you're the creator of an NFT that you want to have a royalty on, you would have to bake that into your core NFT smart contract. So rather than pushing the responsibility of the NFT being paid to a platform, it would have to be within the core NFT contract so that in order for a transfer to occur, the royalty would have to be paid.
Good.
I think that's good.
Hey guys, thanks for that awesome panel. Shout out to PizzaDAO. I'm just wondering, how do you guys think the evolution of Web 2, like Facebook renamed themselves Meta? Yep. How do you guys see that evolving between the Web 2 trying to create the metaverse via what you guys and what we are all trying to create here today?
I want to give this to one of you, but quickly, I'm bullish on Mark Zuckerberg more than I thought because I learned that he used to make employees at Facebook, I'm not sure if he still does, but read Snow Crash when they started.
So I must say, I'm very grateful for the fact that Facebook renamed to Meta because all my friends who aren't in crypto, aren't in the whole NFT scene, they suddenly are hearing Metaverse, and now they're like, hey, you were talking about this, 3 or 4 months ago. Now Zuckerberg's doing it. We want to know more, and I think it's bringing a lot of people into the Web3 space. So I know it's a bit of an unpopular opinion because a lot of people are like, oh, he must change the name back. But I'm quite grateful that he has done it. And I think, we might not necessarily see Web 2 and then Web 3. It could become, Web 2.1, 0.2, 0.5, and we're going to slowly see that merge coming across. But there's going to be a bit of mixing in between.
And I think, too, what's going to come down as kind of a differentiator, while it might all fall into the category of metaverse, is kind of the ethos that blockchain and Web3 and crypto culture brings, that is totally counter to what we've seen from Facebook and big tech, and that's user ownership of your content, being able for users to profit off of the content that they're creating, users being able to own the content that they're creating. We just haven't seen that from Facebook, and the idea that that's going to totally shift, I think is probably relatively unlikely. So while I do see these larger companies and Web 2 companies moving into the space, hopefully these kind of the ethos that Web 3 brings and the platforms that we build will be more desirable to build on and use for different users that are coming into the space.
While I look for other questions, I just want to point out, because I have a mic, you let me. When Facebook started working on Libra and Diem, the conversation in the regulatory landscape really started up and a broader conversation. So at least from my perspective, perhaps there's some things there for Metaverse as well. Was there a question up here? Great, I'll come over.
So kind of to follow up on the last question, how important would you guys say that decentralized storage of media assets is for the Metaverse that people are trying to build? Like, is it essential, or is it something that could be only needed in certain situations?
I'd say it's probably pretty critical. Either you're using a shared hosting service like IPFS or something like that, or you're self-hosting your data. Otherwise, you lose this idea of having access to your NFT, because really generally what gets stored on chain is the hash of your assets or a pointer to where your asset is stored. So without being able to access the data that your NFT represents, you lose a lot of functionality. So I do think that's a pretty critical aspect of what we're looking at.
Thank you. Any more questions? Questions in the house?
So with NFTs as collateral, it makes sense with big projects like Punks and Bored Apes, but obviously they're limited in number and the amount of people holding them are quite few compared to the greater population. Will products exist where NFTs with kind of a fluctuating floor or even something that's newly minted would be able to kind of interact with these contracts in such a way that there would be some agreement on the price to collateralize it, even though the floor is constantly moving? Just kind of curious about that.
Yeah. I'll weigh in to start. So I think you hit on a good point, and I think this is why we haven't seen broad adoption of a liquidity pool model that you brought up earlier. But I think to start, it will most likely start with those larger projects, and that's because there is a need to define the price of the NFT to offer a loan, and doing that in an algorithmic way is extremely challenging. Oracles, Chainlink, I know you guys are working on some NFT floor price oracles, but again, extremely challenging. That only applies to the floor NFTs. There's different rarities, so I guess it depends, and we'll see. And we'll see who comes up with a good answer to that, and I think they'll be really successful with their NFT platform.
Yeah, I'll just add in quickly there. So, already it's quite a difficult thing to determine, how much is an NFT worth. And that's a very simple transaction. I'm going to offer you X, you either accept X, and then the deal happens. When it starts becoming collateralized, suddenly you've got a more sophisticated transaction to go through, because it's how much interest are you going to get, what is the duration, and then how much collateral are we going to go? We're going to go 50%, so that seems to be a bit of a market standard, but maybe someone else will come in at 70%, but also then want a higher interest rate. As the person holding the NFT, how do you now determine between these two? And it's not an easy thing to do. It is very much a sophisticated transaction. So we might see professionals, coming up in the space, people who study NFTs and assist people with this. Or we might just let market forces kind of decide and let the first few, some people make a lot of profit, some people make a lot of loss. But at the end of the day, we slowly start learning, and then we figure this out at a later stage. But it's definitely a challenging one, that faces the whole collateralization of NFTs.
So I forget the name, but there was one NFT project within the last few months where the founder actually pledged to make loans to any holders of the NFT. So I could see that happening where the founding team or the community backstops the value of the NFT. I know our community kind of establishes a floor price for the pizza boxes because we just decide, well, we're going to all buy them when they're this cheap.
All right, one more question from the crowd, and then we will be around if anybody wants to ask more. Okay, we're switching.
Yeah, just to piggyback on that, the fractionalization of an NFT. I mean, in collateralized loans today, it's very easy to just cure your margin with a fractionalized amount. If you owned one Bored Ape and you had another one with the floor price is 300 grand at this point, I mean, you could potentially be adding a ton of collateral to your loan. It's just not the nature of the NFT not being broken down into smaller parts an issue for the collateral piece.
So the question was, for existing loans in DeFi collateral, if it's with a token, you can add more to that collateral to supplement your collateral if the value of your collateral is going down. With NFTs, that's a lot harder to do unless they're fractionalized. Then there's kind of these weird mechanics. And so the question was, how do we deal with that weird mechanic when we're dealing with these sort of NFT things?
Yeah, and maybe I can start. So I don't know of any platforms that are like as fractionalized as that. I know there are NFTX pools, but I kind of agree, and maybe that's kind of the starting question of does it make sense to use fractionalization in your approach or not? And if it does, I'm not sure there's the best approaches out there right now. So it'll be interesting to see who comes up with what.
No, definitely. I mean, when you're making these loans and stuff, and to have those like margin calls coming in, and it is a form of risk management. And we are very, very new when it comes to NFTs and collateralization. And so there are these blind spots that you quite correctly pointing out there. And it's kind of like, we will get there, hopefully. Let's do one step at a time. And then while we're doing it, we might find, there's all these other problems, or people are finding arbitrage here, or, there's a big risk that hasn't been addressed. So I kind of see it as an evolution, so first version is going to be this, next version is going to account for all of these other shortcomings that might pop up.
And one more point too. So the kind of issue right now is that all of these loans, if you were to fractionalize, are based on floor price because that's really the only available metric. But realistically, is that fair if you're going to be using a liquidation approach? Like, you could have a really expensive Bored Ape that's nowhere near the floor price, and just because the floor price drops for your asset, that doesn't mean that your specific Bored Ape has dropped in value. So again, this comes down to the design for these kind of liquidity pool approaches. And who's going to figure that out, and kind of what's the best way to build it. So,
yeah, NFTX has always been on the forefront of this. I mean, even from the beginning when they first, I love how they bootstrapped their platform when they launched. They gave NFTX token if you put a punk in their pools, and they had different traits or different pools for the different punks. So, like, there was a floor punk pool. There was a 4-trait pool, a 5-trait pool. I think there's a zombie pool. My buddy, actually, we traded his zombie in and out until we got Pirate Zombie 2249. So anyway, I think we can look to them to really lead this.
All right. Well, thank you guys. Let's give all the panelists a big round of applause.